listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Dzień dobry. This is Joanne Yanitsky, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the February 5th, 2026 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Lots of good stuff to read today. I'm going to just jump right in. Front page. Beautiful, some beautiful, beautiful photographs. First of all is a photo by Peter Sloan. The caption reads, "Bringing the Christmas season to a close. The Polish-American radio program hosted its Opłatek and Kolenda Polish Christmas on February 1st at St. Stanislaus Church in Buffalo, New York. The parish social center was full of the radio show's supporters and friends who enjoyed a Polish dinner, singing of kolenda, and sharing of opłatek. Kicking off the program were the Polish heritage dancers of Western New York, accompanied by Ted Szymanski on accordion. And Ted is in the picture with dancers and some other characters in costume. There's a devil and an angel, and I don't know what kind of animal that is. It's very tall. Joining the festivities were members of the Ukrainian community that were led by Mariana Druchek. And there's a picture of the Ukrainian community that also attended. And they are dressed in their lovely ethnic costumes. And the littlest one looks to be about 3. I'll give her 2 or 3. And then, of course, grandmas and grandpas and all kids in between. And then there is another photo of families in church. Also, these photos are all by Peter Sloan. And the caption reads, "A blessing and procession with thunder candles during a Mass commemorating the presentation of Jesus in the temple that was held at St. Casimir Church, Cable Street in Buffalo, New York, also on February 1st. And both captions say that there are more photos, probably at the infamous Am-Pol Eagle centerfold. So we'll see as we go through the newspaper, we'll find what else is that we can see about both events. I'm going to jump into Polish news bites. Extreme cold closures and rising hypothermia deaths. Poland is grappling with a ferocious cold snap, with temperatures plunging below -4 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of the country, prompting widespread school closures across northern regions and in the capital, Warsaw. Authorities warned that temperatures could fall even further, nearing -30 degrees Celsius in some areas, leading to severe frost layer alerts nationwide. The extreme weather has already claimed dozens of lives, with hypothermia deaths reported to have hit at least 38 people. Meteorologists link the blast of Arctic air to broader climatic patterns that have delivered one of the harshest winters in recent memories. Well, it appears, this is your reader, it appears that many other countries are being hit by that polar vortex that we are getting, unfortunately. So, what's next? Balloon incursions strain border security. Poland has reported a third consecutive night of balloon-like objects entering its airspace. From neighboring Belarus, Polish military radars picked up the objects along the eastern border, and authorities say the incidents may involve balloons used in cigarette smuggling or as part of hybrid tactics by Belarusian actors. While the objects have not posed a direct threat to air traffic safety, the repeated incursions have heightened tensions along the NATO eastern flank. The operational command of the Polish Armed Forces stated that the balloons are being tracked and that responses are calibrated to hamper any reconnaissance efforts. Temporary restrictions on civilian flights have been imposed in the border-adjacent Podlaskie region as a precaution. Minister fined for actions on YouTube interview. Poland's Justice Minister, Waldemar Żurek, was fined by police after being caught on camera committing a traffic offense while participating in a live YouTube interview. The unusual incident occurred when Żurek was speaking to the public on social media and was seen driving in a manner that violated road safety regulations. Police intervened and issued a fine according to ordinary procedure, a development that drew both domestic and media attention and comment on accountability for high-level officials. Żurek acknowledged the fine in a statement, expressing regret and emphasizing his respect for the rule of law. And to wrap up Polish news bites, cyber attacks target Polish energy, manufacturing sectors. Poland's cybersecurity authorities have disclosed details of a coordinated cyber attack campaign that hit more than 30 wind and solar farms, a manufacturing firm, and a major combined heat and power plant. The December 2025 attacks, which involved destructive malware capable of crippling industrial control systems, are among the most significant cyber threats faced by the country recently. More photos. Two gentlemen, two women. Caption reads, welcoming visitors to the A.P. Gorney Different from the Rest exhibit at the Rare Book Collection at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library was professor, bookmaker, artist, actor, historian, storyteller, and performance artist A.P. Gorney. New exhibits showcase A.P. Gorney's artistic mastery and exploration by Amber Healy. Trying to define or contextualize the work of A.P. Gorney is as difficult and ultimately fruitless an exercise as trying to predict the name he'll be using next week. A new exhibit inside the Rare Book Collection at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, entitled A.P. Gorney, Different from the Rest, begins with the panel listing all the names Gorney has used in his lifetime. A.P. Gorney, no periods. A period, P period Gorney. Anthony Pet Gorney, Anthony Peter Gorney, and so on. Even this detail underscores someone who has dedicated his life exploring creativity, leaving no artistic endeavor and opportunity unturned. A professor, a bookmaker, an artist, an actor, a historian, a storyteller, a performance artist, Gorney is all of this and more. He contains within him the multitudes and unpredictability that have allowed him to be successful in all his pursuits. For so many of his pieces to be on display for the public is something of a curiosity for Gorney. Quote, I never had any intention of anyone seeing them, he says of the books he made by hand, paper to cover to binding. Continued, my background is partly in printmaking, painting, sculpture, etc. With my background, I know a lot of stuff. The paper in these books are all handmade. I made all the paper and I bound the books myself, and then I wrote in them. They're sort of journals, and they cover a period of approximately 40 years. Growing up on Buffalo's east side in his family's home on Peace Street near Genesee and Bailey, Godny was part of a close-knit family whose roots in Buffalo's Polish neighborhoods go back generations, with one great-grandfather helping to found St. Adalbert Roman Catholic Basilica. After spending most of his childhood in his family's neighborhood, Godny was first introduced to the arts when he enrolled in classes at the Buffalo Museum of Science and later Albright Knox Art Gallery. It was here he began his lifelong love and passion for the arts, becoming part of a youth theater troupe, performing with the likes of Christine Baranski, among others. It was at the same time, around the age of 12, he began writing in journals detailing the events of his life. Quote, I grew up near Queen of Peace, and that was walking distance to Villa Maria, the school and everything, Gorney said. My family has been in Buffalo since around the 1870s or so. Some of the earlier ones on my father's side came here in the 1870s, and then the mid to late 1880s for some of the others. I was a student at the Diocesan Preparatory Seminary in the days before the Kensington Expressway was built. One of the things we did as part of this exhibition is I did an oral history interview with him, and I talked about his history coming up in Buffalo. Exhibit curator Heather Gring says. She continues, it was really incredible to me to learn how foundational Queen of Peace was to his entire identity as a young person. He was an altar boy. He describes how his first experience of art was seeing the murals in Queen of Peace. When his world expanded through access to resources that, quote, don't really exist in the same way today, Gring says, he was introduced to people and experiences he never had before. The Museum of Science at the time had, quote, a really active and in-depth youth education program. For AP, no periods, that's the first time he met children who had different life experiences than him, end quote. Quote, that's how subsequently I became involved in many of the productions, like theater plays, musicals, that they were putting on at Villa Maria. It was close enough to my home that I participated there. I was also at the Museum of Science, and I was going to school at the seminary, Gorney says. From acting in plays like A Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, where he starred as King Arthur, opposite Baranski's Guinevere, he eventually became involved in the New York Theater Workshop, a summer program that accepted only about 50 students each year. Quote, we were exposed to all kinds of performance. This was avant-garde at the time. We were doing all these wild things, Gorney recalls. This love and appreciation for performance would follow Gorney as he moved and traveled, including a stint in San Francisco, where he portrayed Giles, a white clown-like figure first performed in the 1700s and also known as Pierrot. In the late 1990s, Gorney, as Giles, filled plastic bags with pansies and handed them out to passers-by at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, each bag also containing a message pertaining to the importance of the gay and lesbian community making a space for themselves in the world. He later reprised this performance at the Albright Knox Gallery in Buffalo, now the AKG Art Museum, without notifying gallery staff of his performance and providing the same pansies in soil and plastic bags to patrons on their way into the museum, says Gring, a former student of Gorney when he taught at Buffalo State University in the printmaking program. Museum staff scolded the patrons about bringing dirt inside the gallery, underscoring Gorney's point about marginalized people making room for themselves and demanding passage into places they belonged. Later, Gorney began making his own paper and book covers, binding them himself. The display at the Rare Book Room contains nearly a dozen samples of his work, including a massive book with a metal cover and a human face on one side. Gring says Gorney previously kept that particular book buried in the soil of his front yard, allowing the face to gradually become uncovered during spring rains. Among his many professional journeys and adventures, which included stops at art institutes in San Francisco and Philadelphia, among other cities, Gornit taught printmaking at Buff State in addition to making his own paper and binding his own books, some of which are journals, some of which were more art pieces meant for display. The exhibit of Gorney's work at the Rare Book Room at the Central Library in downtown Buffalo will be up for another 10 months. An opening reception on January 29th was filled with former students and colleagues from Buff State congratulating the energetic and enthusiastic artist for his success and sharing stories of previous adventures. Later this month, a second and related exhibit will open a block away at the Western New York Book Arts Center, with a second reception scheduled for Friday, February 27th, connecting the pieces featured in each exhibit. That exhibit will be on display through March 21st. The collection in the Rare Book Room will be available for 10 months. Quote, "There's a big 4-foot by 3-foot book. I can't display it here at the library. It's too big," Gring says. "Thankfully, I've been collaborating with the Western New York Book Arts Center. We've been working on a variety of projects together, and when they heard I was working on this exhibit with AP, they were excited and wanted to participate. So the 3-week exhibition is going to have some of his larger, more grand works that I really just don't have the capacity to show." End quote. Initially, Gring contacted Gorney to view the pieces he had in his home, including the massive book he believes weighs a couple 100 pounds and will be on display at the Book Arts Center. Quote, "I made these for myself. They're sort of a catalog, and I put things in it which were proofs, working proofs, and all kinds of working materials from prints that I made." Well, I must say, A.P. Gorney's name is sort of familiar to me, but I had no idea, and I think I connected him with theater, but I had no idea that he was as talented an artist and printmaker as he is. We have lots of time for it to warm up, so you can get to the downtown Buffalo and Erie County Public Library and go to the Rare Book Room to see the exhibit. I'm sure if you call the library or go on their webpage, they're going to have information about what times the exhibit is open. Okay, time for our first break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So, a new said sports record. Let's see what this is about. This Sunday's Super Bowl between the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots will set a new record for betting. The American Gaming Association estimates a record $1.76 billion will be legally wagered. The transformation of gambling in the United States is one of the most striking and troubling cultural shifts of recent decades. What was once confined to Vegas, Atlantic City, tribal casinos, and lotteries has become an omnipresent backdrop to everyday life, blurring the line between entertainment and economic exploitation. From the Super Bowl to billions lost each month in New York State alone, the growth of legalized gambling deserves a moment of sober reflection. Every year, the Super Bowl serves not just as a sporting spectacle, but as a testament to how deeply gambling has embedded itself into American culture. In 2026, an estimated $1.76 billion will be legally wagered at one game, a nearly 27% increase from the previous year. What was once fringe has become mainstream, carried along by the proliferation of mobile apps that place an entire sportsbook in the palm of your hand. This surge in legal betting activity stems largely from a 2018 Supreme Court decision that dismantled a federal ban on sports betting. Since then, 38 states and the District of Columbia have legalized some form of sports wagering. The rationale was simple: bring betting out of the shadows, regulate it, and let the tax dollars flow. And flow they have. In New York, the scale of legalized gambling has reached almost unfathomable levels. Monthly handles routinely dwarf those of other states, with billions wagered online. And with a 51% tax rate on gross gaming revenue returning hundreds of millions to state coffers. Yet for every dollar that trickles back as tax revenue, tens more are lost by individuals chasing the thrill of a sure thing. Michelle Haddon, Executive Director of New York Council on Problem Gambling, has written, quote, in 2025 alone, New Yorkers lost approximately $2.5 billion on mobile sports betting. This is not simply entertainment spending. It represents real financial loss felt by households, families, and communities. While many people gamble casually, research consistently shows that a very small percentage of high-frequency, high-intensity bettors generate the majority of gambling revenue. Those are often the same individuals most at risk for harm. End quote. Beneath the surface of tax checks and industry press releases lies a harsher reality. Problem gambling rates have climbed. Helplines report rising distress, and anecdotal accounts paint a portrait of households eroding savings, accruing debt, and sacrificing financial stability. Research shows that in states where sports betting is legal, households reduce savings and increase bankruptcy risk. A social cost that rarely surfaces in glossy promotional materials. Even those who don't gamble will pay the cost, as Haddon reported. Quote, in 2026, New York will allocate $16 million for problem gambling services. End quote. Legalization was sold as a consumer protection measure, a way to weaken the black market. Yet illegal gambling still thrives, siphoning billions from legal markets and perpetuating unregulated risks. In New York, we agree with critics who argue that the state's reliance on gambling revenues is short-sighted. The money lost on bets is cash not spent in local economies, not invested in families or education, and certainly not a cure-all for budget woes. Meanwhile, the spectacle of legal wagering on events like the Super Bowl only reinforces a misleading cultural message that turning personal risk into public entertainment is both acceptable and profitable. A very thoughtful editorial. Let's go to Polonia's calendar. On Thursday, February 12th, Research Night, Breaking Through Our Members' Brick Walls, hosted by the Polish Genealogical Society of New York State members. It's at Erie One Bosie's, 355 Harlem Road in West Seneca, 7 to 9 p.m. Remember, that's across from the SPCA. Also on Thursday, February 12th, Fat Thursday, Punchki Day, St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs Road in South Buffalo, from 5 to 10 p.m. Free admission, polka music by Buffalo Touch, Polish food, and more. That's sponsored by the General Pulaski Association. Saturday, February 21st, Punchki and Polish pottery with instructor Michelle McLeod at St. Stanislaus Marian Hall, noon to 3 p.m. Includes paints, stencils, choice of bisque pieces, and punchki. Cost is $50. Pre-registration is required. Phone number 716-854-5510. Again, 716-854-5510. Saturday, March 7th, a Polish pottery workshop. Our Lady Help of Christians Lower Hall, 4125 Union Road at Genesee Street from noon to 3 p.m. $50 includes one item plus paints, brushes, designs, patterns, and instruction from Michelle McLeod and Barbara Wawrowski, plus light refreshments. Call Kathy. Phone number 716-893-7885 for information and registration. Again, 716-893-7885. Thursday, March 12th. Polish census records, then and now, by Tadeusz Pilat, Iriwan Bosies, 355 Harlem Road, West Seneca, 7 to 9 p.m. I'm thinking that's with the Genealogical Society. Sunday, March 15th. Corned beef and cabbage dinner and pot of gold raffle. Dinner includes corned beef, cabbage, potatoes, carrots, rye bread, dessert, and beverage. $18 per person. Children under 12, $9. It's 11:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon or until it's sold out. St. Stanislaus, corner of Fillmore and Peckham. You can eat in or take out. Tickets are available from ushers or the rectory office. Saturday, March 21st, Research Day at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library with Polish Genealogical Society of New York State, 1 to 5 p.m. The Grosvenor Room, Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, 1 Lafayette in downtown Buffalo, New York. And this is a save the date. July 24th, 25th, and 26th, the Polish American Arts Festival, Cheektowaga Town Park, Polish food and beverage, music, crafts, dance group, exhibits, lectures, demonstrations, and more, free admission. Again, July 24th, 25th, 26th. Mark that on your calendar. That's an important weekend in Western New York. Now to This Week in the History of Buffalo's Polonia by Carl L. Buckeye. The following is a list of events that occurred during the week of February 5th to February 11th. February 6th, 1942, the Felician Sisters opened St. Rita's Home for Children in Gettysville, New York. February 6th, 1914, the Chopin Singing Society is legally incorporated under New York law. February 9th, 1913, Polonia commemorates the 50th anniversary of the Polish Uprising of 1863 with a parade followed by a musical tribute at the Broadway Auditorium, which was then Buffalo's largest event venue. A vast chorus of 9,000 men and women sing patriotic songs as part of the ceremonies. February 11th, 1896, at the White Eagle Hotel on Broadway in Buffalo, the business leaders of Polonia hold a commemorative banquet on the evening prior to the 150th birthday of Thaddeus Kosciuszko, a hero of the American Revolutionary War. And finally, February 11th, 1962, Theodore Mikl is installed as president of the Chopin Singing Society. I'm scrolling along here. Let's jump to Tom Tarapachki, Polonia Press Box. He's got, I see lots of names in here. Glancing, they're done in bold type, so they kind of jump out at you. I think this is going to be a good one. And before we do Polonia Press Box, let's do our next break so I don't have to interrupt. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Okay, Tom Tarapachki. The headline reads, McDermott, Stefanski, and other football stuff. It started with the long overdue firing of head coach Sean McDermott, followed by the surprising elevation of GM Brandon Beane, and then somewhat surprising promotion of offensive coordinator Joe Brady to the head coach position. The hiring of Brady reminded me of what often happens when a school board or governmental organization looks to fill a vacant top position. They conduct an intense nationwide search at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars in order to find the best person for the job. After extensive interviews, they discover that, surprise, surprise, that person was already on the staff. The brevity of the search to replace McDermott led me to believe that the selection of Brady was a sure thing. The fact that the Bills interviewed a couple of candidates that had almost no chance of being hired, including a former quarterback with no NFL coaching experience, was also telling. Of course, we have no idea of what really goes on behind closed doors at One Bills Drive. The morning of the McDermott firing, the morning sports talk hosts were insisting, like every other local sports personality, that there was no way that Terry Pegula would fire McDermott. On the contrary, many national pundits had been predicting the head coach's exit if the team faltered again in the playoffs. If it were up to me, I would have replaced both McDermott and Beane. I considered them a partnership that should have delivered more success on the field. They transformed the Bills from the dysfunction of the Russ Brandon, Doug Whaley, Rex Ryan era, but they didn't achieve the ultimate goal. With Josh Allen on the roster, we certainly should have made it to the Super Bowl by now, regardless of the excuses. To that point, look at this year's Super Bowl quarterbacks. Drake May, a second-year player with the recently rebuilt New England Patriots, and Sam Darnold, who was selected before John Allen in the 2018 draft. Darnold, now in his fifth NFL team, for a while had been widely considered a bust. Joe Brady certainly won the press conference, coming across as sincere, committed, and enthusiastic. Let's see if he can win in the playoffs. We've had some accomplished coordinators in Buffalo who fell short as head coaches, like Wade Phillips, Greg Williams, Hank Bulla, and others. So let's hope that Joe Brady isn't one of those. Let the hype begin. What have you done for me lately? Just before McDermott's firing, Kevin Stefanski was hired as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. You have to wonder if the Bills might have considered the offensive mastermind if he had been available. You probably know that Stefanski coached the Cleveland Browns from 2020 to 2025 and was named AP Coach of the Year in 2023 for the second time. Last year, he was fired. However, there are a couple of things you may not know about Kevin. For one thing, he played defensive back at Penn, but soon after he entered coaching, he developed a specialty on the offensive side. Also, Kevin's father, Ed Stefanski, also attended Penn but played basketball. Ed went on to become a top NBA executive and is currently with the Phoenix Suns. A few young Polish Americans were involved in the NFL coaching carousel. Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator Grant Udinski, age 30, a native of Doylestown, PA, who entered coaching right after playing defensive end at Towson, helped the Jaguars achieve a record-breaking offensive season in 2025. He reportedly really wanted the Bills' job, even dropping out of consideration for the Browns' head coach. One of the top head coach candidates was 38-year-old Clint Kubiak. He had great success as offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, which set a franchise record for points scored this season and made it to the Super Bowl. He's still a possibility for a head coach job. His brother, 37-year-old Clay, is offensive coordinator for the 49ers. He was under consideration for head coach jobs with the Raiders and Steelers, but withdrew his name. Another brother, Klein, 34, works as a scout for Dallas. Their parents are Gary and Rhonda Kaminsky Kubiak. Among other things, Gary coached the Denver Broncos to victory in Super Bowl 50 and is a member of the Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Former quarterback Philip Rivers interviewed with the Bills but then withdrew his name. EthnicCelebs.com points out that, quote, Philip's great-grandfather, Michael Gunner, was born in Mayfield, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, or in Missouri, the son of Andre, this doesn't seem to be following, the son of Andrew Andrzej Gunia Gunner, who was Polish from Pielgrzymka, Bezuk, Jasło, Galicia, and of Eva Wapenska or Ivenka Sarafin, who was Slovak, end quote. The Alabama native also has English, Irish, Slovak, Scottish, Scots-Irish, Northern Irish, and Welsh ancestry. How about those Hoosiers? There were a few Polish names on the roster of the national champion University of Indiana Hoosiers. Tight end Riley Nowakowski scored the first touchdown in the national championship game. He transferred for his final season from Wisconsin, where his adoptive parents had graduated. A native of Milwaukee, he played for longtime coach Jeff Mazurchak at Marquette High School. Zen Michalski was a 6'6", 310-pound redshirt senior who transferred from Ohio State and mostly played on special teams. Matt Marek was 6'3", 308-pound freshman offensive linebacker. Another freshman, walk-on Josh Plashek, saw some action on kickoffs during this season. Quarterback Mark Gronowski finished his remarkable college football career by leading Iowa to victory over Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Mark earned MVP honors by completing 6 of 22 passes for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, while also adding 10 rushes for 54 yards and a touchdown. Before Iowa, Gronowski was 49-6 as a starter at South Dakota State, making him the all-time winningest quarterback on all levels. Daniel Subkovich was one of the best wide receivers in FCS football. In the title game, he caught 5 passes for 52 yards and 1 touchdown as Illinois State fell short in its bid for a first-ever NCAA game FCS football championship. The unseeded Redbirds fell to Montana State 35-34 in an overtime thriller. It ended an amazing run for Daniel Subkovich, who holds school records in career receptions and receiving touchdowns. Quarterback turned receiver Ben Veselovsky helped University of Wisconsin River Falls to its first NCAA Division III football championship with a 24-14 victory over defending national champion North Central College, Illinois. During the season, Veselovsky totaled nearly 700 yards of offense, catching 26 passes for 333 yards. Well, Tom certainly did a great job on this week's Polonia Press Box. He had a lot of research to do on that one. So, we're at the infamous Am-Pol Eagle centerfold, and photos are by Peter Sloan, and there are some lovely photographs of St. Casimir's Church and parishioners and the blessing of candles, thunder candles. A traditional thunder candle, or gromnica, is a pillar candle made of 100% natural beeswax. After ornamenting with fresh greenery, signifying life, usually asparagus fern, it is tied with a white and or blue ribbon recalling Jesus' mother Mary. The thunder candle is finished off with an image of the Black Madonna and a gold band or two, reflecting the Candlemas Gospel, proclaiming Christ as, quote, the light of revelation to the Gentiles and glory of his people, end quote. These candles are, some of them are quite large. I'd guess they're at least 18 inches tall and 2 or 3 inches in diameter. And then on the second half of the centerfold, more photos by Peter Sloan and more pictures of the event. And I'm telling you, from the wide view photograph of the church hall, it was packed. Tables are filled. The annual Opłatek and Kolenda Polish Christmas event on February 1st at the St. Stanislaus Social Center in Buffalo, New York, was hosted by Andy Gołębiowski and began with a blessing by Father Mariusz Dymek. And there is a very nice picture of Andrzej and Father Dymek. There are more photographs of dancers and characters led by an accordion player. We talked about that earlier. The devil is there and the angel is there. And this animal, it's got horns. I don't know if it's supposed to be a ram of some sort. It's a furry animal head, and I think it's held on a stick, which probably is why it seems so tall. But the rest of the animal is wrapped in black fabric. So, but from the looks of the curled horns, do mountain goats have curled horns? Ram's horns are different. This is not a ram's horn. So we're just going to have to guess at that one. There is also a photograph of a lovely, and these are the Ukrainians. And I know that because the angel who is leading the procession is wearing wings that are blue at the top and trimmed in yellow at the bottom. And yellow and blue are the colors of the Ukrainian flag. And the Ukrainians are also, you can tell they're singing, and they're walking through the church hall, sort of in a procession. I wish you could see these angels' wings. So this young girl is probably 5 feet tall, and the wings are as big as she is. They touch the ground. They're up to the top of her head. And I don't know if they're made of real feathers or if someone spent an awful lot of time cutting crepe paper strips. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. And they do look rather real, but that would be an awful lot of feathers. Okay, so here we go. Fat Thursday celebration is February 12th. The General Pulaski Association is holding its annual Fat Thursday celebration, a joyful, authentic pre-Lenten feast known in Poland as Tłusty Czwartek, Fat Thursday. Thursday, February 12th, 2026, marks the traditional day of indulgence before the solemnity of Lent begins. In true Polish spirit, the event celebrates abundance with hearty food, sweet treats, lively music, and warm fellowship, reminding everyone to savor life's joys before the season of reflection. Held at St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs Road, near the corner of Seneca Street in South Buffalo, from 5 to 10 p.m. The evening promises free admission and free Polish food to fuel the festivities. Attendees can purchase fresh punchki, those iconic Polish donuts filled with rose jam, custard, or other favorites. The night comes alive with entertainment from the 3-time Grammy-nominated polka band, the Buffalo Touch. Guests can dance, laugh, and connect over a full bar, raffles, and the chance to share stories with friends, family, and neighbors. For more details, visit the General Pulaski Association online at www.generalpulaski.com. There's no space between General Pulaski. I'll do it again. www.generalpulaski.com. Let's do our last break because there's lots more to get through here. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I wish you could see some of the colorful ads for punchki. We have Eileen's Centerview Bakery. If you are from West Seneca or even close by, you know about Eileen's. And you especially know about their almond rings, which is certainly one of our family favorites. But Eileen's Punchki Day is February 17th, Tuesday, February 17th, and they're open at 6 a.m., they close at 5 p.m. They will take pre-orders. And it says, punchki, grab them before they're gone. Now, I remember having to walk to Sparks Bakery in Lackawanna on Abbott Road, which was just around the corner from where we grew up. And we had to go to get Busha Voitan's punchki. She loved punchki. And they were big, and they were heavy, and they were filled with the jelly that made them so special. Couldn't eat the whole one. That's how big they were. Okay, we have an article here by Mary Lou Vidalbeck, president of the Chopin Singing Society. Rogers loves singing and being a Chopin Singing Society member. The Chopin Singing Society is proud to highlight some of our new members. Today, we'll introduce you to Cheryl Rogers, who joined in May of 2025. Previously singing in her youth at St. Josephat Church in Cheektowaga, and then in the chorus at Villa Maria Academy, and later as an adult at St. Anthony Church in Fredonia and Holy Trinity in Dunkirk. Cheryl says that, quote, music has been a lifelong joy for me, end quote. Dabbling in accordion and piano, she says, quote, singing has always been my favorite, and I love to sing for and with my granddaughters, end quote. Having known of the Chopin Singing Society for years, it was last year's Dingus Day events and articles in the Am-Pol Eagle that triggered the idea of joining. Previous requirements of travel in her career precluded her participation, but now retired, she took the initiative to join. Coming from Fredonia, her husband often accompanies her, making the hour commute pass quickly. Commenting on her participation thus far, she says, quote, "I love singing with the group, and being in Chopin also gives me the chance to reconnect with my Polish ancestry. The singers are fun and friendly, and we make beautiful music together." End quote. She does express the following hopes. Quote, "I wish we had more opportunities for social events as a group, and I would love to see many more join Chopin to continue this wonderful tradition." End quote. The choir would also appreciate having new singers join us at rehearsal on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at Potts Banquet Hall, 41 South Rossler Avenue in Cheektowaga, New York, as we begin new music in preparation for our 2026 events. Dingus Day Buffalo prepares for the 20th anniversary parade. This year will be the 20th Dingus Day Buffalo Parade. The parade will begin at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, April 6th, 2026, with check-in at the intersection of Memorial and Paderewski. Organizer Wendy Higgins has posted, quote, "I would really love to make this the biggest parade we have had so far. Get your family together and decorate your cars, or walk together, or go crazy and build a float. It's totally up to you. But please be a part of it with me." There is a $25 registration fee to cover the costs of the parade. Sign-up information is available at www.dingusday.com. I'm not going to give you the rest of the extension. You'll find the information that you need on the dingusday.com website. Okay, Polkas on Tap. We've talked about this Thursday, February 12th. Fat Thursdays, St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs. That's in South Buffalo, New York. St. Teresa's Church is on Seneca and Mineral Springs. It's from 5 to 10 p.m., free admission. The Buffalo Touch will be playing for your listening and dancing pleasure. On Sunday, February 15th, Mardi Gras ski at Potts Banquet Hall, 41 South Rossler Avenue in Cheektowaga. 2 p.m. is the start. If you get tickets in advance, it's $12. If you pay at the door, it's $15. You can get tickets at Potts or at thebigeasyinbuffalo.org. I'm going to do it again. thebigeasyinbuffalo.org. No spaces. Buffalo Touch and Lee Ron Zydeco. Special guest Kid Kyle and Captain Tom. That should be a really fun event. Let's see here. Find the time to watch I'll Find You. This is by Renya Senko-Hanchak. Currently streaming on Prime Video, Plex, and Pluto TV is I'll Find You, a fictional story presented within a true historical context. Rachel is a Jewish violin virtuoso who loves Robert, a Catholic opera singer. They face the same prejudices that many young couples from different cultures experience. Then, as World War II begins, Poland is attacked by Germany. Rachel, her family, along with all Jews, are targeted by the Nazis. Robert attempts to protect them, but Rachel and her family are arrested and deported. Robert searches for her and is able to learn that she is a violinist in the Auschwitz Women's Orchestra. I'll Find You is captivating viewing. The opening scenes portray the elegant society of pre-war Poland, with women in the exquisite garb of the 1930s and suited men with alluring fedoras. Poland's vibrant music milieu is exhibited. Robert and Rachel's story is a compilation of many musicians' actual wartime experiences. Yes, there were orchestras in the concentration camps. Former prisoners will attest to music being played as they left for work and upon their return. It is also important to reinforce the extreme danger that Poles faced in any attempt to protect Jews. Robert and Rachel's wish was to someday perform in Carnegie's music hall. Their fractured dream was the driving force that kept them alive and focused. Rachel conveys the emotional difficulty of adjusting to life after trauma and the challenges faced by those who survived. And Rachel and Robert demonstrate the courage and fortitude that enabled them to rebuild their lives. Music, love, and survival are the threads woven into this poignant story, initially released in 2019, with its U.S. release in 2023. I have Prime. I think I'm going to check that out. Okay, we're going to wrap up with a recipe, and the recipe is courtesy of Wendy Vossner. Gołąbki soup. Oh, doesn't that sound delicious? I have some cabbage in my fridge. Okay, start with the ingredients. I'm going to go as slow as I can. 1 pound of ground beef. 2 cans of tomato soup. 1 can cream of mushroom soup. 1 large sweet onion, peeled and chopped. 3 large carrots, peeled and chopped. 1 medium-sized green cabbage head, chopped up into small pieces and rinsed. 3 to 5 soup cans of water. 2 to 3 servings of white or brown rice prepared as the package suggests. In a skillet, brown the hamburger, drain and set aside. Place the cabbage into a crock pot or a big soup pot to cook on the stove. Add the carrots to the pot. Add the large sweet onion to the pot. Add in the 2 cans of tomato soup and the cream of mushroom soup and the 3 to 5 cans of water, or enough water for your desired consistency. Add in the browned and drained hamburger and mix ingredients together. Heat soup until cabbage, carrots, and onions are soft. Add in the cooked rice 15 minutes before soup is done cooking. Enjoy. Now, this is your reader who's had lots of experience with gołąbki and the making of. I've never made gołąbki soup, but one thing I think I might do, and no offense to Wendy Vossner, I'm sure this is marvelous just the way the recipe is, but I'd change that can of cream of mushroom soup and swap in some sour cream, the way Busha Wojtan did to the gołąbki. That's just me. Recipes are always, they're maps, but you can tweak them to your taste most of the time, unless it's a cake. You can't mess with cakes. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the February 5th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. We read from the Am-Pol Eagle every Saturday at 3 p.m. Your reader has been Joanne Janitsky. Thank you for listening. Do widzenia.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Grand Island Niagara County Tribune Sentinel. At 5 o'clock, we have the Lockport Union Sun and Journal. And at 6 o'clock, we got the Wall Street Journal Off Duty. Stay tuned for these readings and more. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,